Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first installment of our Bunnies and Blooms Sew Along, hosted by me. Thank you for joining me for this. We will have a video this week on the bunnies and a video next week on the blooms, and then we'll look at our final construction of the quilt top in a third video, and I will touch on how I do the film strip border. But throughout these video tutorials, I decided, because I had already made my full quilt, I did have footage from those videos of sewing the bunnies and blooms, but as most of you indicated you'd be happy to make a wall hanging, I'm actually going to do the construction of a wall hanging in these videos, and I refilmed over the last couple of days to get this video out to you. But before we move on to this week's video, I announced last week that there would be a giveaway, and I am going to draw that giveaway now. So you may or may not have seen the photo that I posted to my community tab of the prize, but here it is here. There is everything you need to make the flimsy for the quilt pattern that is pictured there, called Celebrate by Cluck Cluck Sew. And I have the fat quarters there and the background fabric for you to make the top of that complete quilt in the lap size, I think. So what I've got over to the left here is a YouTube comment picker. I've gone ahead and told it which video to look at, which was last week's live, and I'm going to press the start button now, and we will have a winner. Okay, Gillian Bloomfield, you are the winner of our giveaway for viewing the live and leaving a comment. So I'll get in touch with you shortly about obtaining your details and how I can get that prize pack to you. If I don't hear back from Gillian within a certain time frame, I will do a redraw. Okay, without much further ado, folks, grab your fabric, grab your pattern, come with me, and I'll show you how to do it. Hopefully between last Saturday and this week you have grabbed your pattern and got all your fabrics ready to make the bunnies and blooms. In these videos I will be making 2 bunnies and 2 blooms, and I'll put together the wall hanging as most of you indicated that that's what you would like to do going forward. I had the fabric requirements there and we went through that last week. On the bottom of the document were links to the 2 original patterns from the Benetex website. These links didn't seem to work properly on the document, but if you go to the Benetex website and type in bunnies in the search, you'll get the first pattern, and if you type in houndstooth, you'll get the second pattern. For our videos though, I'm just going to use my cutting directions that I put together, and they are all linked in the description box below. We're going to start with making the bunnies, and as I said, we are going to be making 2 throughout this video because we need one that faces to the right and one that faces to the left. We're going to start by making the ears for each of our bunnies, and for those we just need pieces I and E, so I'll put all the rest to the side and I'll see you then. Because we need to make 2 different directions on our sew and flips to make the ear units, I'm also going to show you the two different, not the 2, but 2 different ways you can do the sew and flips. So the first one, we're going to do the traditional method, and for that we'll take 2 of our E squares and draw a diagonal line on each of those, and then place the first one right sides together on our I rectangle. Now, to get the right direction for these sew and flips, ensure that you have your I rectangle horizontally on the table in front of you, so the length of the rectangle will be towards your tummy. Then we'll make sure that we've matched up all of those corners nice and square, and we'll take that to the machine and stitch just to the right of our drawn line. The reason I stitched to the right of the drawn line and not on the drawn line is to allow for any fabric that will be taken up by our seam when we press it back over before trimming off the back 2 layers. With our stitching now done, we just simply need to fold this back and make sure that all of our edges still line up so that we still have the same size rectangle that we started with for our eye rectangle. So we fold this back and we make sure that all of the edges on the front are lining up nice and square. And then I also like to flip it over and check that we have got the squareness on the back as well. We'll then press this into place and cut the back 2 layers away before moving on to the next one. With those back 2 layers trimmed away, we now just rotate our block 180 degrees and place our remaining sew and flip on the opposite corner in exactly the same fashion. If you are making the full Bunnies and Blooms quilt, you will need to make 6 sets of ears that go in this orientation. We'll now move on to our ears that go up and to the right to give us the bunny that faces towards the left. Opposite day? Maybe. To do this, we start by placing our eye rectangle, vertically in front of us on the table, so with the short edge towards your tummy. We'll then do the same thing and line up our E square in the corner of that, making sure that all of our edges are lined up and we have everything square. This time I'm going to use my folded corner clipper tool, the tool that I love, and what you do for this is you line that up on your 3.5 inch marks, making sure that all of the edges are square and lined up before trimming away that excess fabric first in this instance. We'll then take this to the machine and stitch our 1/4 inch seam allowance as per normal, and then press this out, and presto changeo rearrangeo, you have a sew and flip in a slightly different fashion. Repeat this to do the sew and flip on the diagonally opposing corner, just as we did with the other ear units, and we will have our ear units that go up and to the right for our left facing bunnies. If you are doing the full Bunnies and Blooms quilt, you'll need to make 4 of these ear units. With that now done, a quick recap. You'll need to make 6 of the ear units that go up and to the left, starting with the piece horizontally in front of you, and 4 of the ear units that go up and to the right, starting with your rectangle vertically in front of you. I'll now just quickly sew together these offcuts and put them aside for later use. We'll now move on to the only other part of the bunny construction that you need to pay attention to when you're doing the sew and flips, because we will once again be doing so. For this, we'll need our G rectangles and 2 of our A squares. So just as we did the ear units, we'll need to make 1 with the piece horizontally in front of us. So we'll use the same piece of fabric that we made the ear unit in the horizontal orientation, and for the other one, again, we need to place it vertically in front of us. This is the little toe at the bottom of the bunny, and so they need to face in those 2 opposite directions as well. If you maintain the horizontal and vertical, as I'm pointing out here, you'll have no problem at all. Once you've got your pieces in the correct orientation, place your little A square in the top right hand corner of both of these. And this time I can show you an alternate method if you don't own the folded corner clipper tool to trim these away first before you sew. For this, I just grab any of the rulers that are close by. So in this instance, I have my 1 inch by 12, and I find the 1/4 inch mark on the ruler, and I place that 1/4 inch mark from corner to corner on my little A square. I then trim away that excess, and this works just the same as if you have the folded corner clipper. We'll now take these to the machine, stitch our 1/4 of an inch and press them out, and then we can move on to more bunny parts. The same as we did for our ear units, you would make 6 of the toe units that are done horizontally and 4 that are done vertically. We'll now move on to the bunny's face, and for this we need our H rectangles and 4 of our A squares. We need to do 2 sew and flips on one edge of this, and it doesn't matter which way, because unless you've got a directional fabric, because we can just do the sew and flips on whatever side we choose, unless we've got a directional fabric, and then you would make sure that your direction is going the right direction. So we'll start by putting our little sew and flip on the top right hand corner of each of these, stitching after we've used our folded corner clipper, pressing that out, and then doing one on the corner on the same edge opposite and pressing that out as well, and we'll have our face units. So if you're doing the full Bunnies and Blooms quilt, you will just need to make a total of 10 of these using all of the fabrics of your bunnies. You will notice when applying the second sew and flip that they do not overlap, and that is how it is supposed to be. For the full Bunnies and Blooms quilt, you will make a total of 10 of these units. We're now going to move on to the body of the bunny, and this is the only place I've made a variation from the original pattern. We'll need our J squares for this and the remaining A squares, and once again we're going to be doing sew and flips. We're going to put a sew and flip on 3 of the corners of both of the J squares, and in the original pattern they only had you putting these at the top. I put the third one in the lower corner to just make the back of the bunny round. So in the same fashion as we've done before, place 3 sew and flips on each of your J squares, leaving one corner without one. You will notice here that I get all 3 ready on both my squares, and I take it to the machine, and I'm actually able to chain piece all of these sew and flips and get them all done all at once. We'll then, once they're all sewn, press them out towards the corners, and we'll be ready to construct our bunny. Now wait a minute. We have one more little unit that we need to make, which is taking our F and V rectangles and sewing those together along the short edge. And as you can see, I cut my B rectangles to the incorrect length. So I will just quickly fix that. It should be 1.5 by 2, and that's not what this is. So I will just quickly fix that and sew this little seam and press that towards the darker of the two fabrics, and then we can move on to putting together our bunny. It's time for us now to lay out our bunnies that are going to face towards the left. And so in the case of this wall hanging, it's just the one. We put the little toe down the bottom, the last unit that we made in between with the head, then that will get sewn onto our body, making sure that we've got our 3 sewn flips in the right corners. The ear comes on the top, and this is where we grab our pieces C and D. Now C goes on top of the head in front of the ear, and the D unit goes behind the ear on the other end. So we'll sew all of the vertical seams for that top row. We'll sew the 2 horizontal seams for the front part of the body, and then we'll sew the body onto the face and leg, and then finally attach the top and the bottom together, making sure that we've got our ears in the right direction. When it comes to pressing these sections, on the top part or the ear row, we're going to press out towards the solid rectangles, and for those front face and feet section we will press both of those seams open. Once we sew the face and foot onto the body section, we'll press that towards the body, and then once we sew the ears on, we'll press up towards the ears. Did you spot the error that I just made with my ears? Now, if you'll think back to a moment ago, I said that the piece C, which is our 2.5 inch strip, goes at the front of the ears. And if you look closely here, I've sewn it to the back of the bunny. So I need to take that piece off, turn it around, and stitch it back on. At least that was a quick fix, and I caught it now rather than later. So with that fixed up, we'll now move on to doing our right-facing bunny. Or, no we won't, we've just done the right-facing bunny. Let's move on to doing the left-facing bunny, and this is done in exactly the same way and exactly the same construction. It's just that the pieces are facing the opposite directions. That's now both of our bunnies made for this wall hanging, and as I said during the beginning parts of the video, you need to make 6 that are facing towards the right and 4 that are facing towards the left for the full Bunnies and Blooms quilt. As we're going to be doing the wall hanging as a part of this tutorial, I need to grab 2 of my sashing pieces, which are 2.5 by 10.5 or pieces T, and I'm going to sew these onto the front of each of the bunnies, so along where the face and the foot are, and that'll be ready for moving on to our next steps. We will press these pieces towards the sashing. Okay folks, hopefully that wasn't too confusing and we know where we're up to, whether we're making the wall hanging or the full-size quilt. I need to include the instructions for both throughout these videos, as I'm not sure who is going to make what. So as always, thanks for joining me again this week folks. I'll see you again real soon, and bye for now.